So really interesting. There was a paper that came out called Beyond the Status Quo, a critical assessment of life cycle investment advice. It was 2023, so not that long ago. And I know that sounds really jargony, but kind of the conclusion is what it did is the traditional kind of thinking around retirement investing is that you de-risk when you come to retire. So basically, if you take 100 and minus your age, that's your equity allocation. So basically, if you're in a position where you're 60, that means you'd have a 40% equity allocation, and the rest would be more defensive assets like bonds. And many people will have thought, just naturally, oh yeah, I'll de-risk because I'm going to start to need the money. Now, what this paper did is it looked at a ton of different scenarios and it kind of threw that conclusion a bit on its head. And it said, okay, so if someone is 100% equity in retirement, if we look at a lot of options and back tests, are they actually going to be better off? And what it found was that their return was not only better, but also that their failure rate compared to, for example, a 60% equity, 40% bond portfolio was much less as well. Now, I think that's a really interesting conclusion because it kind of comes back to the thing which is probably intuitively true if you think about it, which is that if we know that equities are going to grow much more than bonds in general, they're going to beat inflation to a higher rate, surely it would be logical that the higher equity portfolio you have, the better chance you have of not running out of money. Yeah. Considering not running out of money is defined by inflation, it's defined by a ton of other things. Now, I'm a big supporter of people being weighted as long as they're comfortable with it, with higher equity allocations. I think, and this is not going to contradict what I was saying before, it's just to add a bit of nuance, I think we need to have a really sober conversation with ourselves and make sure the plan factors in how bad things can actually get if you are 100% equity. Because my personal take, having looked at the research, looked at all the bits, is that the problem here is the human element, frankly, which is that you only get one shot at retirement. And it's all well and good as running a ton of back tests and running a ton of academic data. But if you are that individual who is retiring at the worst possible time, it's not going to be much comfort if you haven't built in a plan which is going to allow you to adapt. It's not going to be much comfort if you're not comfortable to adapt. So one of the things that, whether it's a cash buffer, whether it's annuities, whether it's a mixture, even some bonds in the portfolio, is that the theory is anyway, it reduces the variance of outcomes. So with equities, things are going to go really well, but it also could go quite badly if you're really unlucky. If you have more diversification in the portfolio and more techniques, you're gonna shorten that range of outcomes in theory. No one at the end of the day can predict the future. But because you only get one retirement, is that necessarily a bad thing? Do you want to try and shoot for the moon if that means that you might actually have to compromise on going on the great holidays when you are fit and healthy and able to do so in your 60s? It's really challenging to get that balance right.
Yeah, if you know that 100% equities produces this range of really bad to really good, and you can thin that out to okay to all right, then that might be acceptable. One thing I think about though is, I often say, I'll be 100% equities in retirement and I'll have a 3-year cash buffer. I'm not 100% equities, then am I? I've got a 3-year cash buffer. Yeah. So a portion of my portfolio is out of the market. Yeah. So I have protected, bond ladder and annuity. Yeah. People, because it's not a 60-40 portfolio in the traditional sense, but a large portion of my portfolio is outside of the market, right? Yeah. So I have de-risked.
Then that's certainly something to consider is what you're talking about. Is you're looking at your asset allocation sort of holistically, you're looking at the big picture, So for example, and you look at this in a ton of different ways. You could go, well, you might have a defined benefit scheme that's in payment and that is annuity-like, so you might have your state pension.
State pension is another form of annuity. Exactly. Equity in property.
Exactly. If you're going to do equity, obviously it depends if you can realise it, but all these things do need to...
But it's there.
Yeah.
It is there.
That was a clip from our chat with George Agan, financial advisor. To watch the whole thing, click right here. What are you doing? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do?
Smiled. Everyone laughed at me.